So I decided to do prescriptive claims, and I decided to focus on those instead of descriptive claims because since the whole podcast was about changing someone's mind, and there's not a concrete answer, there's no absolute concrete information to do that. It's very prescriptive. Like it depends on situation. Many different techniques work. Many different techniques don't work. So I decided to focus on prescriptive claims because there wasn't really any descriptive claims in the podcast. I guess I can start with the prescriptive claim definition. It's a statement about what ought to be as opposed to a positive statement concerned with only facts. Multiple perspectives were presented throughout the article, through the podcast. Many professors from Stanford, Cambridge, and Brown University were guests on the podcast. I decided to focus on three different prescriptive claims, and Isabel and Zoe kind of touched on this. I focused on why it might be easier to change your mind at a younger age, and then I also decided to focus on why it might be difficult to change people's minds even when information or history proves otherwise. And then finally, I decided to focus on why people might be so reluctant to change their mind. I went through and found Robert Sapolsky and his opinion on why it might be easier to change your mind as a younger person. He's a professor of neuroscience at Stanford University, and Sapolsky basically said that positions and opinions we form are not as entrenched and less costly to change when you're younger, and the stakes could be lower as a younger person when changing our own position or mind. So he kind of went in depth about why it's easier for younger people to change their mind. And then Julia Svets, she's an economist at Cambridge University, and she decided to focus on why it might be difficult to change people's mind even when information or history proves otherwise. She said, as humans, we use our memory selectively and tend to remember/exaggerate good outcomes and tend to brush off poor outcomes. In other words, as humans, we may trust ourselves or believe that a different outcome will happen even though the odds are unlikely. We do this because we may have past experiences that result in good outcomes, and we selectively remember said good outcomes while brushing off poor outcomes. So basically she's saying, as humans, we kind of have like this blind faith or like confidence in ourselves or confidence in other people that that a result is gonna change or you'll be successful even though history or other information proves otherwise. So we kind of have a blind faith, and that was kind of her prescriptive claim. And then Stephen Sloman, who's a professor of cognitive linguistics and psychological sciences at Brown University, and Stephen Sloman kind of went into the prescriptive claim of why people are so reluctant to change their mind. And Sloman basically explained that an ego or selective memory, overconfidence, and a fear of losing family or friends is kind of a reason why people don't change their mind very often. Like people are kind of stubborn or set in their ways. And on the flip side, Sloman explains how to change someone's mind. First, you simply ask a person to assume a perspective on something and have them explain their reasoning. If someone explains someone else's perspective and it forces that person to detach from their own feelings and interests, as a result, it forces that person to understand someone else in another way of thinking. So basically, Sloman is saying if you put yourself in someone else's shoes and understand why a person feels that way, whether it's anecdotes or information or just their opinion, you can it's easier to change your own mind because you kind of forget the way that you think and you kind of feel how another person thinks, and that's kind of his ideology as to why or as to how to change someone's mind. So all in all professors that were in the podcast all had very strong prescriptive claims, and they did a good job.